What up, roomies? Tonight's conversation is one I think a lot of creators genuinely need right now. Because we're living in a time where everybody wants to be posting, everybody's creating, everybody's trying to grow. But most people still feel stuck. And tonight's guest has spent years behind the scenes helping creators, podcasters, artists, and brand figures actually figure out how to build a media ecosystem that creates influence, visibility, and longevity. She's an award winning cultural media strategist, entrepreneur, creator, producer, and the founder of Photo Bombshell Media. But what makes this conversation interesting is not just the strategy, it's understanding the psychology behind why some creators grow and others disappear. Tonight, we're talking creator burnout, media ecosystems, influence, visibility, authenticity, content fatigue, platform building, and what she would do if she had to start it all over in 2026. In the House podcast, welcome, Rose Photo Bombshell Mercado. What's
Hey,
going on, girl?
thank
What's
you for
up?
having me. That's such
Thank
a
you.
mouthful. I feel like there's so much fanfare for that. I hope I live up to it.
Yo, after doing my research, it definitely does. You know, you've helped so
Thank
many
you. I
people,
appreciate it.
and you're such a creative person. And and this is coming from somebody who's, only like about 4 years in the podcasting game, to be honest with you. And
Mhm.
this year, I'm kind of like rebranding the whole podcast. So, picking your brain is not only beneficial for myself, but it will be beneficial for my audience as well. And I
Of
really
course.
appreciate you being on. So like let's
Absolutely.
get
Yeah.
into the nitty gritty, right? So like what's the biggest misconception creators have about the media industry today?
Okay, that's a good one. I think people kind of live on two ends of the spectrum as far as
Yeah.
misconception. I think there are creatives who assume that there's no room for them.
Yeah.
There are a lot of creatives that just they may have a great idea, may have a great concept, and just assume, hey, there's no room for me, so there's no point for me to even start. So we have that end of the spectrum, and then we have folks on the other side that believe they can just jump into the middle of this ocean and the magic happens, right? Like if the
Yeah.
product is good, the money will come, which is not always the case. So those are two pretty big ones that I think are like almost universally held
Yeah.
beliefs to folks that either are afraid to get in or get in and can't swim.
I get you on that because I'm actually when I first started the podcast, when we were doing more social commentary and I had my co-host, we were on one of those ends of the spectrum where we were like, hey, if we just do a really great podcast, things will take off and people will like it. But learning through this is so much more and there's so much more in
Yeah.
depth. Yeah. So like when you come across people with those extreme mind states, like what is like your best advice for them, one being that I'm a creative but there's no space for me, and the other being I got this really good product, everybody will float to me.
Sure. So for the folks who think that there's no room, I will always say that there is room. The problem is that the ocean is full of nonsense, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot out here in terms of just creators in general, musicians, artists, podcasters, just doing what they love, and they may not be doing it seriously, or they may not be doing consistently producing a level of work that makes them stand out. And so I always tell someone who really believes in themselves but is afraid to start because they're afraid it's too saturated, if you have a great product and you're willing to put in the work for
Yeah.
years, it will take you years. If you are willing to show up and put in your best effort, you can rise to the top, because consistency is literally the thing that keeps the difference, right? It's the difference
Yeah.
between I'm kind of a podcaster and I'm a top 1% podcaster. So, for example, most people don't even know if you've produced and distributed 21 episodes of a podcast, you're in the top 1% of podcasters.
Really?
Most people's shows die before 21 episodes. So the consistency and being able to, at a minimum, say, like, I know that I can get here. If that's weekly, if that's biweekly, if that's monthly, builds an assumption, right, that you're capable of continuing.
I got
So
you.
for the folks that are like afraid to start, that's what I would say to them. And then for the folks that are like, hey, I've been doing this, I'm doing something really great, I have a genius idea, where is the money? Those are the people that need to build a system. So the product might be great. And what people see, it might hit, right? It might go
Yeah.
viral once or twice, but then that kind of speaks to, okay, what is your goal? Where are you going? Why are you doing this? And if you can kind of hone in your focus and really get that straight to yourself, that will help a lot, right? So if you have a goal and you can build a system around that to get to the goal that
Yeah.
makes sense, that's what I would advise.
All right, cool. So you mentioned having a system, right? So like
Yep.
when you're like, helping other people out, like what kind of system do you generally like try to put in place, or like do you kind of like overview everything they've done and then say, okay, cool, here's like what you're lacking, and you could spruce this up and all that?
So generally, like when I come in, folks will usually like I kind of think of myself as like a fixer,
Okay.
like I'm in the mob, and they come in, they have to come in and clean up the mess, right?
Yeah.
So I think of myself as like a fixer. People will come to me and be like, "Hey, I have an idea and I want to start, and I don't know what I'm doing," or like, "Hey, I have a mess. What is this?" Right? So I pretty much will always sit down with the individual or the team and say, "Okay, what exists? Where, let's say, for example, with a podcast, where does your podcast live? Is it on audio? Is it on video? What is your distribution schedule like? Are you connected to social? Do you have a
Yeah.
newsletter? Do you have a website?" And then, depending on what they have and where they already exist, we determine if that actually matches where their audience lives. So,
Yeah.
is your audience boomers and you're not on Facebook, right? Is your audience Gen Z and Gen Alpha and you're not on TikTok? Like, we have to have a real conversation about where does your real audience live? How do you connect to them? And then everywhere that you already exist, connect it to those new places if needed, but also build a system where you're distributing in a way that things connect to each other. It should
Okay.
never take more than 3 clicks for somebody to find the source of your content. So let's say you post a social clip on YouTube,
Yeah.
right? You can connect your full episode to your social clip, and you should. Because if somebody sees your little short and they like it and it's funny or it's interesting or they learn something, they shouldn't have to go hunting anywhere to find the rest. So things like that, and just educating folks on the fact that like everything works as a team. So you have to build it that way and distribute that way with that thought process in mind.
No, I got you on that. So like when it comes to like people finding the actual material, right, the source material,
Mhm.
what I'm getting is that you want to streamline that process as much as possible. Am I kind of
100%. Yes.
all right? So like when it comes to like, all right, for instance, like and I'm just taking like Gen Z and Gen Alpha, right? They're on
Mhm.
TikTok.
Yep.
TikTok doesn't allow you to like post your link until you have like 1,000 subscribers.
Mhm.
So like when you're like first starting your TikTok, how could you like, how could you get that streamline when there are like gates or like
Oh, of
levels
course.
that you
Yeah.
have to hit? You know what I mean?
So that kind of goes towards goal setting, right? If you
Yeah.
know that you can connect with people in other places immediately, it kind of goes towards things that are very simple that we forget about. Did you text 50 friends and say, "Hey, please follow me on TikTok," or "Please go
Yeah.
to my podcast?"
Yeah.
And then you make if you know your audience is there and you want to make it as frictionless for them as possible, firstly you use your call to action. Every time you post a social post, whatever caption you have, make sure at the end you're saying, "Hey, follow me." Make sure you follow for more. Make sure you go to my YouTube, whatever it is. Or make sure you go to follow me on Spotify to hear more, right? Until you hit that 1,000. But if your goal is to hit that 1,000 because that's your key audience and you need them, you have to
Yeah.
be firstly very present there. You have to make sure that your content is consistently going there. Use your CTAs and then start doing like old-fashioned stuff like tell your friends like I assume that you're going to support me because you're my friend, but sometimes those folks need a direct ask.
Yeah.
So, hey, please make sure that you're following me on TikTok. I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers. Please spread the word. Very organic stuff like that. And I would recommend if that's a need where you see that your audience is, make that one of your first goals.
True on that. But that also comes to the cliches saying that, you know, your friends and family, you have to make them believers before you actually make a stranger a believer. And like
Well,
I've been there where I've taken like my boy's phone, like, yo, give me your phone, bro. And I'll just like subscribe to all my things for him. Cause I know,
hmm
you know, my friends are super cool and you know they're super supportive. But you know, they're like, nah, I'm not gonna subscribe. I'm like, why not, bro? And then I'll just have to do it for them because they're just lazy. I'm gonna
yeah,
be honest with you, but
yeah. I think a lot of creatives really struggle with that, right? It's
yeah,
very easy for, even if let's say you're somebody who makes comedy skits,
yeah,
strangers are going to be like, "Oh my god, that was hilarious," but your friends might just assume, "Okay, this is what you're doing for work. It's not even for me." Right? They may assume it's not for them, or they may assume that like they don't have to support you because, "Oh, you know I love you. You're my friend, you're my sister, you're my brother, whatever."
yeah,
So there's kind of like an assumption that they don't have to be as active to support you. So that is almost always an obstacle, right? You're going to convert strangers faster than you convert your friends. But that's where I say, like, always be upfront with people. I really need support on this. I really need you to come over. And even though it's a small thing and it may be like cringe to you, it's important to me. So I think for creatives, that is something that you absolutely have to be vocal about.
no, I get that because you know, as a creative, I do struggle with asking like the people I do know to like you know like and subscribe my stuff and you know
Mhm.
and follow me and whatnot because I interact with them on a daily basis.
Yes.
So I think, personally, I think it's because of the fact of that daily interaction or that personal one-on-one interaction that it kind of like offsets creators to like kind of like ask the people that they know to like subscribe and follow them.
Mhm.
And do you see that a lot?
Definitely. I think that's if there's somebody whose friends and family really support them, there are a few folks that I know it's obvious, right, when that happens.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's one guy that I know on a podcast, and at his live events, his whole family shows up. Everybody buys merch. Everybody's in the front row. Everybody's got VIP. But I think by and large, that's not the standard at all. You
Yeah,
almost always see it the other way. Yeah.
that is true. Yeah. And like, so what kind of like creators stand out to you? Like, you're like, when you see like a creator's product and you know the persona that goes behind that, like, what mostly stands out to you?
So when I'm like just consuming content in general,
Yeah.
I firstly you want your quality to be good, right? Especially because that is the first impression that people have of you. You got to assume that the when your content goes out, a stranger is going to see it, right? And it's
Yeah.
your first impression every time. So you want your quality to be good, you want your lighting to be good, you want your content to be good. And I don't say that to stop anybody from starting because you got to start with whatever you have first and get better as you go,
That's
right? I'm
fact.
not a proponent of like wait until it's perfect because you'll never start. So start with what you have, but then also like learn some things as a
Yeah.
creative, especially someone who's going to show up in public on whatever social platform or audio platform or video platform. You have to have an awareness of lighting, of framing, and of how people are going to receive your content. So just being a student of the craft is super important, and that does stand out. Like if I compare and I watch shows like consistently and kind of see how they improve over time. There are shows where like there's a lot of money going behind the production, and
Yeah.
there are shows that like they're just getting up and moving, and both of them are fine. And the thing that will separate them again in time is the consistency, because even if somebody is top tier, if they
Yeah.
release on a Monday and then a Wednesday and then 3 weeks later and then they show up a month later, it doesn't matter what they put out because they're a hot mess, like logistically.
Yeah.
So, firstly, quality, and then secondly, consistency.
I got you on that. And like, how much does like and this is just me comparing like the creative space to like sports. How
Sure.
much does like talent actually go into like into this? Like besides like consistency, because I know consistency is a big one. But like how much does
Sure.
talent actually play a part in it?
So, I mean, for the folks that are actually on camera,
Yeah.
um, I think it's part talent, part personality, right? You could be you could be largely unfunny, but you're just like really charming on camera, right? And
True.
you could fumble your words and be a buffoon, but you're like hilarious in your recovery. So I think it's half and half. Um, that being said, most creatives that are operating out here, and it's obviously not everyone, but most creatives that are operating across the board in music, media, podcasting are not alone, right? So
True.
where they don't have the talent per se, right? They have a team member who has that. So it's both, but also having a team.
I get you on that. And like, for the creatives that are like doing everything by themselves versus people who have a team, right?
Hmm.
Like, what would you say would be the importance of growing your team and like kind of like delegating certain tasks to everybody versus somebody who just said, you know what, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go at it, and I'm gonna just learn everything myself until I could build the team.
I mean, I'm one of those people. I'm like,
Me too.
this is what sets me apart from people. I not only know how to read, I will read, right? So
Yep.
I'm one of those people that's like, okay, I didn't know any of this stuff. And I have been in podcasting for more than 10 years, and I am like a multi-generational musician. So I've been in it since like I'm born, but I didn't go to school for that. I was afraid of being a creative growing up, so I didn't pursue any of that. I have a very like not creative degree. So
I feel you
I think
100% on
yeah,
that.
like my degree is I have a degree in criminal justice, I have a degree in education. And then as an adult, I went in and started doing creative things on my own postgraduate school. So like I fully believe that folks should get in there and do the work and learn first.
Yeah.
Get in there, do the work and learn first until you just don't have the capacity anymore. And by capacity, I mean time wise, right? If your show is booming and you have a distribution system and you're getting a lot of bookings and you need to expand into like Patreon, for example, to start making more money, you're going to have to double your workload. You might need help, right? You
Yeah,
might need
definitely.
an editor so that you're not sitting around for 6 hours 10 hours every week doing edits on your long format and your social content. So for folks who are doing it alone, I am a proponent of that.
Yeah.
I'm a proponent of hang on to it, do your best, learn as much as you can, and so you don't have the bandwidth. And then grow your team with people either that understand your dream and are willing to support you and grow with you, understanding like you may not be making money right away. That's just the nature of the creative business, um, that support you in a way that will allow you to continue to be the leader in making decisions on your own creative. I think
Yeah.
people that are in these spaces, it's not just business to them, it's so deeply personal. And if you build a team of folks in that really don't care at all, that's not going to work. You
Of
have to
course.
have people that buy into the dream and that are willing to work hard and also to some degree take direction so that you as the creative, as the person who had the idea or the dream or the mission, are still kind of in the driver's seat to some degree.
I get that. I get that. And you had mentioned that, originally you weren't a creative and you started this after post grad. So like what caused the shift from like criminal justice and education to, being in that creative space? I know you also mentioned that you're a multi-generational musician as well. So like did you
So
just like flip back to like you just reverted back to the roots and all that?
a little bit, a little bit. Like my grandmother was a classically trained singer. My mom was in a rock band. So as a
That's
child,
dope.
I witnessed these things, but it was also a time when, like, you know how it is now, like the
Yeah.
shop is open, anybody could put music out.
True on that.
And I, yeah, and like I honestly believe if you have really great music, you work hard, you understand how the system works and you get in there, you can be successful, whatever that means. That means financially successful, or if you want to be famous. I don't believe they necessarily always go together. But like when I was growing up and I was witnessing their careers, really incredibly talented women get eaten alive by the system
Yeah.
because of just the way that it works, right? It wasn't how it is now. And so I grew up thinking like I can sing and I can do all these things, but I shouldn't because it's not safe and it's not going to be a great use of my brain, or I won't be able to have a stable career. And so I threw the whole thing out the window. I was like, we're not doing that. And I got my degree in criminal justice, which I actually love. And it kind of like, it set me up to be taken seriously. My master's degree in education, the same kind of
Yeah.
thing. It set me up to be taken seriously, but I burned out of higher ed very fast. I kind of was like one of those young prodigies that shot too close to the sun, right? I came
Yeah.
out of school with like my guns blazing, and I went from being a part-time employee to being a director of a very large department at a college, supervising lots of people and just completely burning myself out. And it was sometime after that I was like, okay, I'm just going to slow down. I got my photography degree at night while I was still in higher ed. And
Yeah.
then sometime during COVID, I'm just scrolling Instagram, and Station Head, the app, had just come out,
Yeah.
and they were looking for hosts for TV shows, radio shows rather. And I was like, okay, I mean, I could do that, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to sing. I can talk to people. Folks won't even be seeing my face. It'll be fine, right? So I got in there and I realized in their system, they had a lot of people who wanted to do shows, but not a lot of people who knew what they were doing.
Okay.
Nobody was like producing shows. And so I was like, "Oh, like I grew up with this kind of stuff. Like I understand how this goes. We could do this." And so I very quickly produced a very successful show, and I have a lot of people that are still my clients that I work with routinely that I met through doing that radio show that I did for 2.5 years. And so from
That's so
there,
dope.
things just kind of, thank you. From there, things just kind of like snowballed. It felt like
Yeah.
I was where I belonged, just being with all these people doing these great things. And I was able to highlight independent artists, connect with musicians, and give them a place to stand out. And so it was kind of like a little bit paying homage to my mom and my grandmother because they didn't have these things. So I was able to give that to other artists, which was super important to me. And that kind of like fueled everything going forward.
That's so dope because it's like, everything just clicked. I want to say just clicked in, but you started paying homage to your mom and your grandmother, which by our conversation, I could tell they're big influences, correct?
Hmm.
And you found like your place of belonging, and that's so dope when somebody kind of like just on a I don't want to say on a whim, but kind of like
It
by the
was kind
chances of the
of,
universe,
yeah.
by the chances of the universe, they were like, "Hey, we're looking for hosts," and you was like, "You know what? I could do that." And look at you now, right?
100%. They're like, "Yeah, we'll pay you per listener." And I was like, "Oh, I'm in."
I got this.
Yeah.
So, like, what in like your professional opinion, like, what's the difference between like producing a show or like a series or a podcast versus just creating content and just throwing it out the wall?
Sure. Well, I think their creators can be successful any number of ways.
Yeah,
Like I know people who do the spaghetti method and it works for them. But then you get into concerns about like, is this sustainable long term?
yeah,
So for me, when I tell folks that are intending to do something long term, um, you have to build a structure that you can continuously do, right? So if you have an idea about a podcast or a show or a tour, for example, you have to build in the frameworks to make it easily repeatable and recognizable to folks. So when you do your intro on your intro is always the same. You have your music is always the same. You at some point start building in natural segments that people can recognize. And so it helps you as a guideline so that you know, okay, this is my recipe that I'm going to replicate every week, 2 weeks, 1 month, whatever it is. So you have that understanding, but then also your audience comes to know and expect it from you, and it becomes part of your branding. So I'll always say, make sure that you do something that you can talk about forever,
true.
and that you can give structure. And there are different ways to change your discussion throughout, but that it's still in the same theme.
I get you on that. So, like, you want to be able to have a plan that basically keeps you rolling for as long as possible,
Correct.
and
Yep.
not just like always trying to keep up with trends or like do what everybody else is doing because you want to be able to stand out.
For sure. I mean, trends are helpful. I the shows that I produce, I shit on trends. Like I do not like it. I do not like it. And like the people who work with me will be like, "Oh, there's this thing happening on social media," and I'll be like, every time, "I don't care. I don't care. I don't care." But they are useful, right? So if right now everyone's talking about Iceman, everyone's talking about
Yeah,
Drake, everyone's talking about the Knicks, everyone's talking about, well, just recently the Kevin Hart roast. Like there are things
yeah,
that are going around that if you talk about it, it's going to get you a few more eyes and ears, right? And that will bring people in. But if it's disjointed from your concept, if it's not what you normally talk about, if you are never talking about pop culture or it doesn't tie into what your actual show is, then it's not sustainable. Those people might come and look at you once and then they're never coming back. So it doesn't really make a difference. So I think if you are using trends,
yeah.
you have to use them like very cleverly in a way that actually makes sense with what you already do. And then you can lean into that because yeah, it does give you some momentum like naturally. Yeah. But me personally, I hate them.
No, I get you on that because it's kind of like when, all right, for instance, like let's take YouTube for example, right?
Mhm.
You see how with like new creators, they're like, oh, you have to like get into a niche, you have to like kind of like find your pocket versus like being a broad channel. Is
Mhm.
I would say like trends are kind of the same because even if you like try to have like this broad channel and like go with what's popping right now, you only get
Mhm.
like a couple of those clicks, but you never really get like subscribers that are there for the
Yep.
long run.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So like so when it comes to that, right? How
Mhm.
in your in like your advice, how do you get like somebody who like clicks on your page for the first time and make them from a one-time viewer to like they're always coming back every week to like consume your content?
So for someone who's first time click, it's human nature, right? Whether or not they're going to stay, right? If you make someone laugh, if you teach them something, if you entertain them, if you inspire them, those are pretty much the tenets that everybody uses
Yeah.
in creating content, right? To get people to connect to you. To get people to come back or to get people to be curious about you on a regular basis, I think it requires you to be super authentic, right? Be
True.
your actual real self. Um, because if people watch you long enough, they can sniff the bullshit.
Yeah, true.
So
No, it's
be your
facts. It's
actual real
facts.
self and personalities win, right? Like
Yeah, it's
if you're
facts.
over here like and you're just very boring and dry, it's hard to watch. It's hard to consume. So having a personality and actually being somebody who's fun to watch helps significantly.
No, it's true because of the fact just and piggybacking off what you're saying is like you people could see the passion that someone has for like what they're doing. You know what I mean? And the more
Mhm.
passion you put into it, or at least like I don't want to say the facade, but like the show of it and the gusto of it, people are attracted to that. So like
Yeah.
they always want to come back to see more, and that's like and a good example of that would be I don't know if you watch Brilliant Idiots or heard of Brilliant Idiots with Charlamagne and
Mhm.
Andrew Schultz. Like
Yep.
you feel me? Like their rhetoric and their back and forth is what makes the show fire. You know what I mean? So like I got where you're coming from on that with the personality thing
For sure.
for sure. And so like what other like advice or like tips would have for like up and coming shows to like make them stand out and give them that like that juice?
So I think something that most folks are not doing
Yeah,
is sitting down and having real conversations with themselves or their team every month, right? Every month and every quarter, go sit down, look at your analytics. I know it's boring, but the analytics have the answers. And that's why people call me, right? It's because the analytics have the answers. If your the covers on your videos suck or your titles are terrible, your CTR is going to be low. So the data has the answers. When people are coming up, it's super important to take a look at your numbers. And if you don't know what the numbers mean, this is your time to be a student, right? You
yeah,
have to go look it up and you have to establish goals for yourself. And every month and then again every quarter, assess, okay, what did we do? Where is the growth? Where are things not growing? And if we're not growing, what were we doing in that period where we didn't have growth that we can change going forward? So I think that's incredibly important. A lot of people are just running and gunning, right? They're just
Yeah, true.
going and trying to do as much as they can, and then they're not looking at anything that they're doing in order to improve. So I think that's critical to grow, especially as a new creator, to get some momentum, understand what's happening, and then build on that going forward.
No, I got you on that. So, like, how does one capitalize on the momentum they're building? Like, how do they really ride that wave to, like, whatever goal it may be? Maybe it might be, just doing a podcast that, frees them financially, or they want to
Mm-hmm.
become, or they want to get at to like Joe Rogan's level.
Oh gosh. Okay.
No, I gotta hit you with the hard. I gotta hit you with the hard
Well, listen,
questions.
no matter how you feel about him, yes, I
Yeah.
mean, he has a significant degree of success, right? So,
Yes.
I think in terms of folks that are looking for that monetary piece,
Yeah.
and you do have momentum and you are doing all the right things and you can see your numbers going up, this is where you change gears a little bit. There are different ways to monetize creative, depending on what you're doing. So for podcasts, for example, you can sell sponsorships, you can sell ad space. So your pre, post, and mid-roll ad reads. You can do integrated ad reads. You can become an affiliate. You can get a corporate sponsorship. You can also, on some platforms, when you hit a certain level, you can have automated integration of ads. So ads, affiliates, and sponsorships can all happen. And then additionally, if you have the bandwidth to do content behind a paywall, like Patreon, OnlyFans, but I mean it
Hey,
in the,
yo.
you know what I mean?
I know. I know.
Like
I know.
that's another one. You put your content behind a paywall. It does require you to increase your content output, but that is money that's going to come into you, even if you do like Instagram subscriptions.
Yeah.
So there are different ways to do it. It just depends on like what are you capable of realistically, time wise, resource wise, because sometimes there is a financial investment to get the money back. But yeah, when you have the data to support the ask and you say, hey, listen, I have 30,000 listeners every month. I would like $300 per ad read, and I'm going to sell you that ad read. And you reach out to 50 companies and say, hey, I've got a podcast. I have a captive audience. It's the same people that you sell your product to. And I would love to give you an ad space because we can help each other. When you have a conversation like that, where you are giving a sponsor value, and you have an audience that you share, you can easily sell those things.
I got you
It
on that.
becomes much more sustainable financially. Mm-hmm.
I got you on that. And like for like small creators, right? When should they like kind of like start branching out for like sponsorships and trying to work with like companies to like affiliate them with? Like at what level of their
Where
quote
should they
unquote
get to?
career? Yeah.
I think all the time. There was one podcast that I started early on with them, and immediately we had deals with bars and restaurants. There we had another podcast that we had a liquor deal before we had 10 episodes out. So I think if there's buy-in, and you, even if, let's say for example, you don't have the streams yet,
Yeah.
if you say, hey, these are the people that are on the cast and everybody is promoting, we have a reach of XYZ collectively, you already have a bargaining chip when you have the data. So I think immediately, like, don't wait, because if you, let's say you sell ad space to a sponsor for 4 episodes.
Yeah.
Okay, you got 4 episodes sorted. And if you're super big in a month and you doubled or tripled, well, now you can go sell ad space to a bigger company, to another person, or you can double your ad read or your partnership for exposure with another company. So I would say don't wait. It sometimes is a numbers game, but supported with data, you're going to get where you're going a lot faster.
I got you on that. And should like, small creators reach out to like local businesses or like, they like how can I say it? Like things that are happening in their like local in their local neighborhoods and stuff like that, like with collaborations and stuff.
Absolutely. I think that, like, especially when you're small, folks around you may not even have, like, there are little cute little shops popping up all the time. I'm in Jersey, so like there's stuff constantly popping up. Restaurants, bars, coffee
Yeah,
shops, strip clubs, whatever. Everything is moving around, right? So those folks may not have a media presence, or they have one again where your audience aligns. So absolutely. And it's important when you're the person who's like behind the mic, or the star of the show, to be going physically outside. Go outside, go to the restaurant, go to the coffee shop, go to the strip club and say hello and say, hey, listen, I have this podcast. I have this tour coming up. I have this show going to be around the corner from you. I would love to see how we can work together. Absolutely. And when you go outside and people see your face, that you're a real person, that you're not a robot, you're not an AI, they're much more inclined to say yes. So, absolutely, yes.
yeah. And I'm the reason I'm asking is because I've had a couple of those experiences. Since my podcast is a smaller show right now, a lot of my local businesses know me by face because of the fact that this is my neighborhood and whatnot, and I've
Hmm.
grew up here my entire life, so they know me by a first name basis. But when the podcast first came out, a lot of them were like, "Hey, you know, just because they knew me, my family, they were like, yo, whatever you want to do, just let me know." And I have a lot of sources that are willing to help me out.
Yeah,
Not financially, but advertise me. If I want to
sure.
record at one of their spots, and I think that a lot of content creators kind of misconstrue have this misconcept of what help is because of the financial factor, and don't realize that, hey, if you have like a local lounge or a club that say, yo, come do a podcast here, switching up your scenery and having
Hmm.
that environment might just boost up your numbers, or at least put your name out there a little bit more.
Yeah, one of the first shows that I did was a comedy podcast with a couple of my guy friends. You never saw me. I was just a producer on the show. And somebody who used to work on a police department bought a boxing gym, and we went and shot an episode in the boxing gym. And it
Yeah,
was great, right? So it was a bunch of goofy guys doing boxing badly. It was hilarious. And it got them outside meeting people who they never met before, and it connected with that audience there in that town. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's creatives in the beginning have to operate with a little bit of humility,
yeah,
which you don't want to, right? As a person who does PR, you always want to act like you have everything together and you don't necessarily need folks, but that's not real life, right? People need each other. So wherever you can have synergy and where you can network across, do that. Yeah.
true. So like when it comes down to it, like the importance of connection, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on this, but having people that you connect with, or having like businesses that you could connect to, could kind of like offset like the financial factor of it, because those are people willing to help. Like should like smaller creators like kind of lean into that for like help in the beginning before they get to like the financial part of it?
So I think that's relationship based, right?
Yeah,
If you have a great relationship with somebody and they're like, "Hey, come shoot in my place," or we want to put up a flyer in the window, or whatever it is, absolutely lean into wherever the help is, take the help. Like, don't let your
yeah.
ego be so big that you can't say yes. Because there's gonna come a time when you can't say yes anymore, right? When you are, maybe it doesn't make sense to sell a $5 ad spot to your friend, or advertise your friend's shop for free. Like, there's gonna come a time when you can't do that, right?
Yeah,
So yeah, 100%. Where you can connect and where things make sense, even in the beginning, even when it's not necessarily like crazy dollars amounts, and you're just doing an exchange to help other people, absolutely. And also, I worked on another podcast where they were like, "Yeah, we thanks to our ad sponsor," and it was like somebody's friend somewhere, and nobody was paying anybody any money. It was like, "Hey, thanks so much to our sponsor at XYZ Rehab." Like, And people thought, people thought it was a joke, but it was actually a real facility, and they just did an ad spot for their friend, but it also made them look really good, right? Like
Yeah,
we have a sponsor. So yeah, 100% do those things. Nobody needs to know what your deal or your exchange is, but helping people is always good. So yeah.
true on that. True on that. So that actually just brought up a really good question in my head, right?
Mhm.
So let's say that you're just like helping out, a friend or like a local business, and you're not charging them for ad space or whatnot. Would like the appearance of you just having that sponsorship, through the screen, like help, the momentum of your platform, even if
So
you're
I
not
don't
like,
know.
even
Yeah,
if
I
you're
don't
like
know.
not gaining anything financial or anything like that.
So I think yes and no, right? So
Yeah.
when people hear that you have a sponsorship or you have a partnership, especially early on, there's a certain level of like, okay, this person really takes it seriously.
Okay.
So that perception, yes. Can it help you actually get another sponsor that's actually paying money? Also, yes. As far as like growing your platform, that part I don't necessarily think so,
Okay.
but it does help with perception and with getting more money in the future. So there's a definite upside, yes.
I got you on that. I got it. So all right. So our main focus was the media ecosystem, right?
Mhm.
So as through our conversation, we've talked about, sponsors, growth, and all this. Like, how do you maintain like a healthy media ecosystem that you as the creator feel comfortable having, and and you're not burning yourself out trying to like kind of like make sure all these connections are still like flowing, frivolously.
Yep. I think it's super important for people to be realistic about what they're capable of.
Okay.
A lot of folks come out of the gate very optimistic and they're like, okay, cool. We're going to be on every audio platform and we're going to be on YouTube and we're going to be on TikTok, Threads, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're, I don't even know if Periscope is a thing anymore. And we're going to live stream. We're going to do all that. And that's cool if that's realistic. But if it is not realistic, you are wasting your time and your efforts, and it's going to impact your ability to do this for the long haul, right? You're going to burn out. It's just like when on New Year's, when people go to the gym and they're like balls to the wall for 4 days, and Valentine's Day comes around and the gym is empty. It's the
Yep.
exact same thing, right?
I get it.
Start with what's realistic. Where does your audience live? Learn that, do that. When that's solid, expand. When that's solid, expand. And then as far as the ecosystem is, start your ecosystem small, right? In whatever way is small and manageable to you, and then build from there. So I own a media company and then another media platform. I didn't come out the gate thinking I will own several media companies and run a whole bunch of shows simultaneously. My brain would never even be able to like fathom how that works until I got the grip of the first thing first.
Yeah.
So be realistic with what you can do, really write it down. And then when you start feeling comfortable being consistent and doing that to the best of your ability, then add.
I got you. I got you.
Yeah.
All right. All right. And like, all right, how? And this is a question that I've been wanting to ask. Like, with Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, and especially with YouTube, right? How do you like kind of make sure that your platform or your show or whatever content that you're putting on YouTube is always being pushed, since the algorithm is always changing up?
So the algorithm is always changing, and I'm an SEO specialist. So what's interesting about YouTube in particular is that it is deeply connected to Google.
Yeah.
And Google is where all the SEO rules come from. So I would advise learning a little bit about SEO. It's not easy. It does change. It's like stepping into a river. You're never stepping into the same river twice. Like I literally have a book this thick that I had to read to get my certificate,
Damn.
and nothing in that even counts anymore. None of it's real. So you have to pay attention.
Yeah.
And for those folks trying to make sure that you have consistent push, you have to do a couple things. You have to show up. You want to be a high volume creator, which means you're doing a minimum of 12 pieces of content out every month. I would advise more if that's realistic.
Yep.
If it's not realistic, you don't do that. Build a system that you can repeat. So if you can put out content twice a week, put out content twice a week at the same time, twice a week, so that people know and they can understand. Just like when we years and years ago had TV at a certain time of day, you would get your act together so that you could watch it because you knew that if you didn't, you would miss it. So even though that's not how we consume media anymore, people still have that kind of wiring that they know if at Tuesday at 7 o'clock, their favorite show is going to be on and they want to get in there live because it is set up in a preview and they can live chat with their friends while it's on, they will do that. So
Okay.
building that in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And now for the big question that I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
If you had to start it all over in 2026 from zero,
Yep.
what would be your process?
So my process would be definitely spend some time doing something completely new. I would study what already exists, right? We have a lot of AI bots that can help you do that. I don't love them, but that's just part of reality. I would leverage, right? A little bit of research, what's already out, what's already working, and what can we forecast from the last 5 years that will tell us what's going to happen in the next 5. Based on that information, I would build a concept for a show that's replicable and I would cast those people. And then the system that I would build would be 28 to 30 pieces of content going out every month on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I don't really love Twitter, but I would curate a different set of content to go out on Twitter, completely different from video content. I would have it audio distributed through all major channels. And then I would also, if I had the time, invest time and energy into active PR campaigns for my own content. So every time something comes out, sharing, hey, this amazing thing happened on my show. It's news now. Everybody needs to know about it. So now the work of publicizing everything that I'm doing is already being done for me by other media platforms. So definitely like a lot of homework on what has happened to tell me what will be successful. And then building that system of putting it out in a very high volume way. And outside of that, I would make sure that I have, because I couldn't do it myself, I would have people that want to do high volume clipping, because that is going to change everything in the game going forward. Whether or not your media is successful and how fast it moves is going to be largely based on whether or not you are blanketing every possible surface that you can with your content. And so high volume clipping is going to do that. I think also getting involved in streaming would be a pathway to build either an additional piece of the ecosystem or putting the show directly on streaming. I think Twitch and a lot of the moves that people are making in gaming, where it's kind of becoming not just gaming, but gaming and entertainment simultaneously, is a way that a lot of things are going. So I would invest some time and energy there as well.
I got you on that. And just, and I just have this idea, right? Let's say that you start streaming and you're using like Twitch, Kick, Rumble, the major streaming platforms. Would you think just running like, if you're a podcaster, just running your episodes like continuously on that channel, you think that would like help out as well?
Running it continuously. It depends on what your goals are, right? If your goal is that you want to have a credible platform that you can sell, I don't know that that's going to capture all the data that you need. So data is king. If it can capture the data that you need to support you getting money on the back end, absolutely. If not, then I would say don't. But I don't see any reason not to incorporate it. If that's something that fits your brand and fits what you're doing, and you can make some kind of integration into that naturally, I think that's a clever way to do things.
Okay. And like when it comes to like, the character, right? The person that's behind the screen. How important is it to like not only sell your product, which is your podcast or whatever content that you're pushing out, but how important is it to sell that your personality and show people who you are? Like, what would you say would be the percentage of people like loving your product for the product and loving the product because of the person behind it?
So I believe that we don't sell products, we sell people,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
and I also was in sales, right? So I know that anybody could sell a bar of soap, but they're going to buy it from me because they think I'm pretty or I'm funny or I'm nice or I'm silly or I flirted with them today, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
um I think media is very much like sales, right? You're selling yourself, you are the product. If
Yeah.
it looks good but everybody's boring, nobody's buying. So I think it's like 99% personality,
I feel you.
honestly. Yeah.
I feel you. I feel you. And Rose, before we head out, there's a one question I always ask all my guests, and that is, do you have any final thoughts, words of wisdom, or advice for the roomies?
Sure. I think my biggest my biggest advice for the roomies would be just start. A lot of people are just held back by a lot of limiting beliefs that are imaginary. And I am one of those people that I just like don't ascribe to a lot of social norms. I don't ascribe to a lot of self-limiting beliefs because they are imaginary. So whatever negative thing you're thinking, no. Just do whatever you think that you want to do. Just start it now. There's no reason why in 2026 that if you don't know how to do it or you don't believe you can, that you can't figure it out. So, firstly, read, and then secondly, just go.
I feel you. I feel you. And roomies, remember, your reality is made from your perception. So don't slack on yourself. You owe it to yourself to go out there and do what you want and accomplish your goals. So start today. Don't wait for tomorrow. Peace out.